In these perilous times, see from current events how biblical prophecy is coming to pass in front of our eyes. You're watching In the Last Days, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. With Martin and Natalie Blackham. Thank you to our friends and partners who make this program possible. Now, here's Martin and Natalie.
Hey, shalom, dear friend. This is wonderful to be with you today. This is In the Last Days TV program. My name is Natalie Blackham. Martin is behind the scene today. It's always a pleasure to be a window for you and showing you what's happening here in Israel. Today I want to start a bit differently than usually because we have still terror attack. We are really in a wave of terror since Rosh Hashanah, which was September 2015. And now we have 32 people, Jewish people, who died because they were stabbed or they were rammed by cars or they were shot. And it's important, and we want also you to know about that. And it's not just like people. They are part of a community. They are wife, husband, you know, they are married. They are part of they have a job, and suddenly they are not in a job. It's like it's making holes in the community here, and it's touching us. Now, I was looking The Guardian for Shlomit Kriegman, who died last week. They were reporting, as it is, 2 Palestinians shot dead after knife attack in West Bank shop. And first of all, they are not Palestinians, they are Muslim. I won't say sometimes we're saying Arabs, but they are not Arab because, I mean, they might be Arab, but there is also Arab Christian, and they don't want to be put in the same bag. And there is some research now was done, and they can see that the terrorists, 100% of the terrorists are Muslim, and they are Muslim terrorists. So you need to know these kind of things. So this was 2 Muslims who attacked a lady who wanted to attack as many people as they wanted. And they were going into a shop, and the shopkeeper was very good and fight them, so they weren't able to come into the shop. Another thing that happened just yesterday, and is written, 3 Palestinians, this is CBS News, 3 Palestinians killed as daily violence grinds on. Really? You know, there was 2 police ladies who were guarding, so there was not so many people who were killed, and these 3 Palestinians have been killed because they were shooting. So, and they weren't again Palestinians, we say. They are Muslims, 3 Muslims who killed because they arrived at the Damascus Gate in Jerusalem, and they were plotting a very big terror act. And these 2 ladies, one died, and she shot one of the terror just before dying. So you need to know these things. It's very important. And again today, these last few weeks, we had, unfortunately, 3 ladies who died. And I want to dedicate this program today to them because I want them to be remembered, that their memory will be blessed, then the family will be not just victims, but they will be survivors. And I hope that they will be not only survivors, but they will be victors in their life, and they will show the light to us. The name of this 3 ladies is Daphna Meyer. She was from Othniel. She was 38 years old. She was a wife, a mother of 4 children. She was fostering 2 children. There was also Shlomit Kriegman, and she was 23 years old. She was from the Jordan Valley. And yesterday was Hadar Cohen. She was 19 years old, and she was a police lady who was keeping and really making sure that the civilians are not hurt. So we want to dedicate this program to them. Now today, I have a wonderful lady who is here. Her name is Sherri Mandell, sorry. I always have a bit of problem with my accent. I live in France for a long time and I still have the accent. So Sherri was born in New York, and she studied and she received a master's degree in writing in Colorado, and now she wrote 3 books. And today we will speak especially about this book, The Road to Resilience, which is from chaos to celebration. I won't say too much because I want Sherri to speak herself about it. And Sherri came in Israel. She's a Jewish lady. And she came in Israel. She moved with her husband and 4 children in 1996. And she went to live in Tekoa, which is a beautiful place. You know Bobby Brown. We've done already some program with him. And Tekoa is, some people call it the Arizona of Israel. And it's a beautiful place. And we're going to speak about this book because with what's happening here in Israel and around the world, Israel is leading in a lot of fields. And one of the things is when people live with terror around them and they need to still live life, they still need to be resilient, they still celebrate life. And so we're going to speak a bit about that. Sherri, first of all, thank you for coming today. This is wonderful to have you. I heard about you. And Sherri wrote another book also, which is called The Blessing of a Broken Heart. And so I heard about her because of this book. And she wrote another book. And I said, okay, now it's time to have Sherri and to speak. So thank you for coming. And please explain a bit to the people who you are, where you come from, and where you are at now.
Okay, well, as Natalie said, I was born in New York. We came to Israel. My oldest son, Kobe, was in 4th grade at the time. And then I had 2 other kids and a 1-year-old. And we decided to make Aliyah, to move here and to make our lives here. And Kobe was an all-American kid. Like, he loved American football. He loved American basketball. And he read in English. And it took him quite a while to adjust to Israel and learn Hebrew. And in 8th grade, we felt like, wow, we finally made it. All our kids are speaking Hebrew. That was 5 years later.
So for 4 grades, for the British people, 4th grade, how old are they when they are 4th grade?
I think it was 10.
10? Okay.
Or 9. No,
well,
no,
around
8, 9.
Yeah, 8.
Anyway, yeah. So we felt like we'd finally made it. He was in 8th grade, and the other kids were doing okay. And so anyway, he decided it was 8th grade, and it was May 8th, 2001. And he and his friend, Yosef Ishran, they hatched a plan to go hiking because we live in a beautiful area, and there's a canyon behind our house that you can you can hike to the Dead Sea. It's an overnight hike. It takes about 8 hours. And also, it's the biggest cave in the Middle East. It's just like half a kilometer from our home, a quarter kilometer. And all the kids in our town would go down there. And they went down there instead of going to school. And of course, they didn't tell us. And
As
they
kids
had
do.
what?
As kids do.
Right, right. And they never came back. And we don't know exactly what happened, but terrorists murdered them with rocks, beat them to death. And that was basically the end of our lives, part 1.
And so where do you go from there?
Well, we had 3 other kids, and we knew we had to do something to show them that we would survive. And also we saw their pain, and we saw that there was nobody to take care of them, really. I mean, there was us, and there were psychologists, but they didn't want to go to psychologists. And we got the idea to make a camp for bereaved children. So we had our first camp in 2002. And that first summer, we had about 100 kids at the camp. And then by 2003, there was the Intifada. I mean, it had started when Kobe was killed. He was like number 62. And Yosef was 63, and then hundreds and hundreds of people were murdered. So we had 600 kids at the camp that summer.
600?
600, and they'd all had somebody in their family murdered. Plus, there was terrorism going on at the same time. So we were very well guarded, but there would be terrorist attacks like during the summer. So it was a really hard time. And since then, we've had the camp every summer, and we run holiday camps. And now it's not only for kids who lost family members to terror, but we take kids who've lost family members, you know, a mother or a father, orphans, to other tragedies. And what we learned along the way is really what I put in the book. I also trained to be a pastoral counselor because I felt like I needed to have more expertise in dealing with grief and dealing with bereavement. And I worked on a cancer ward and also in a hospital with patients who were in comas and persistent vegetative states. Because I was really looking for, how do you survive? How do you survive suffering? How do people live with suffering? And also, when you have such tragedy in your life, it's hard to return to the regular world. Even though I live there, like I definitely am in the regular world, there's still something about it that sometimes is almost alien. So I felt like working in the hospital and also could give me some knowledge, and then also working with all the kids at the camp. And we also run groups for bereaved mothers and widows. So my husband and I have been managing all of these projects and also raising money for them. So
you're a busy woman.
Yeah, we're busy. We also have our other children, and you know, I write also. So, but I felt like I
forgot to say, you write in Time of Israel right now, quite a lot.
I write blogs for the Times of Israel, and I'm working on another book. But I felt like I accumulated a lot of information and wisdom along the way, and that the idea of resilience was totally misunderstood, because resilience in English means resalir. You probably know what it means, like to jump back, to leap back. Like salir is in French, right? It's a Latin. It means to leap. So it's to like just go back, just go back to where you were, and that's the ordinary idea of resilience. But if you have trauma or any kind of struggle, you can't go back to where you were because it won't help you, because you're not who you were. So being that person, you're not that person. So my definition of resilience is the ability to expand, to become greater as a result of your struggle. And in the book, I have the 7 steps of how to do that. It's kind of a recipe, and it works for anybody.
And it's very true. You need to go through stages.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they have to be all the same at the same time. I mean, everybody has a personal life, so we don't walk the same way.
Right. It's not, you have to pick the stages that appeal to you and that you need. But there are certain stages that I think are essential, that you really can't have resilience without that. Like, for example, the 7 stages all have to do with C. So it's easy to remember. But the first stage is chaos. And that's the stage most people would rather avoid. And even, I notice, like, even if somebody is crying, people don't want to let them cry. They will not permit sadness. And they'll say, oh, you know, like, even if somebody gives you a tissue, it's sort of saying stop. And really, if you don't go into the pain, you'll never get out of it.
Speak a bit about it, because I love your book. You give, and please, people, you can find this book, The Road of Resilience. The Road to Resilience, on Amazon. And for the UK people, you can find it on the UK Amazon. And it's so full. And when you go through suffering, you don't, it's not even for people just who have somebody who died in their life. It's like if you go through tough things. And I know in Europe right now, you go through tough things. There is terror also over there. It's all around the world. And I think it's a very good tool, and not only is not just a testimony, is a teaching. You really give keys inside. and also with the Bible,
Right.
which is very important because is our foundation, the foundation. God knows how we are, and we are a body and a soul, and we were just speaking a bit about that before, and we have not to forget we are a soul. Things happen to our soul when somebody dies. It's not just a body, you just go. And so you speak like in chaos. Give us a bit of what you were saying about at the beginning, there was chaos.
Right. God created the world. The first sentence in the Bible is Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'aretz v'hayta tohu ve'vohu, that God created the world and there was desolation and emptiness, and that's chaos. But in Hebrew, the word tohu, which is that chaos, also has the meaning of the word wonder, like astonishment. So right from the beginning, there's a commentator who said, because if a person was going to see this chaos, he would be astonished that there is a world while there might not have been one. So in the nature of, in the word itself is kind of a solution, because when you're in it, you can't see anything else. But in the book, I show that actually you will find something else. You'll find some blessing in this, even where it seems impossible. But not at first.
No.
Not at first.
And like I can't make it. This is the first thing that you say. I can't make it. I can't leave. I can't this and
right.
And
how am I
still,
going to do this?
Yeah.
How am I going to do this? And it's also, it's not just loss. It's somebody who's getting divorced or anybody who's the ground underneath them is shaking in some way.
So, yes, it was written also in your book, seed has to turn to nothing to become something.
Right. There has to be, we don't think of it that way, but if you plant a seed, in order for it to grow, it has to be destroyed. And it's a very painful concept because we don't want to grow that way.
No, we don't. We don't.
No,
we do everything
No,
that this won't happen.
There is a way to grow from happiness, but there's something that happens when you're destroyed, that there's some growth, there's some secret that's revealed. And that's why also, like especially with grief, people always speak about closure.
Yes.
Like you should just close the door on it, you're over it, and really it's disclosure.
Yes.
Because every suffering comes with some sort of message and some sort of growth. And unfortunately, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that the world was created like that.
Yes.
But
Yes.
because
you are
we have
very
such
right.
pain.
You're very
And
right.
nobody wants to endure that pain.
And it's interesting, yesterday I was meditating, and because I'm going also through difficult time right now, and I was like, Lord, I need to feel your love. And he's like, ugh. And he gave me the picture of a cocoon, and like that you can be embraced in his cocoon. You are so vulnerable because you're a larva, and you are going to be transformed into a papa,
Right.
a butterfly. And I was looking again, like the Hebrew language is so important. And again, you give a lot of that in the book, which is so important because it's keys for us to understand the human being, who we are, the depth that God wants to have this depth. And anyway, so this Hebrew language is so important. I was like, Pirpe, Papa comes from the name Pirpe. And I was learning, I don't know, tell me if it's true, but it's like struggling. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like to be a papa, to be a butterfly. The action, I have to struggle to be one. And like I have to be this larva. And it was like, okay, so you are doing a big work. I don't want it. I feel so vulnerable. But you are doing this cocoon for me to be able to be there inside of it, in the middle of this horrible time.
Right. Well, I think also like the second step is community of the book, of resilience. And that protection, that cocoon, yeah, it comes from God, this like a belief in God, but you need people when you're suffering to kind of be God's representatives, because a lot of suffering you really can't carry alone. And you need the community. And I think Judaism is very strong with that.
Yes.
Also Christianity. But
I don't know.
well, in Israel, let's say.
In Israel, yes.
The community
I say in
is very
Israel
strong.
is so, for me, they have been a model
Mm-hmm.
to see people coming together, doing so practical things, which is so important. And sometimes, anyway, we take things too like spiritual, and it's like, no, we need to be like down to earth. It's so important.
Right. I had friends or neighbors who came to me for months to help me, like doing the dishes, doing the laundry, taking the kids to school, really practical help. And I feel like all that love that surrounded me and my husband and my family, that's what allowed us to be able to give. Because even in the camp, that's how we define success, is when and in our groups, where we see that somebody who needed only to receive turns into somebody who needs to give. Mm-hmm. But that can take years and years. It's not overnight. It's a long process.
But it's so important to have this. I was very touched when you were speaking about this community, mm-hmm. and like how your health, your mental health can be so important because you have a community. Again, yeah, maybe you can speak a bit about that. I mean, you spoke about it, but you were like saying also, time doesn't heal, and it's life who heals you, because, like you are saying, you are giving. Suddenly you are turning.
Or receiving. Like, we had a girl in the camp who came to camp. She had a scab under her watch. She was cutting herself. And we thought we should send her home because we can't treat people who have really difficult psychological problems, mental health issues. But we spoke to her mother, and her mother said, please keep her at camp. Mm-hmm. And her counselor gave her a lot of attention and love. Mm-hmm. And at the end of camp, as they were boarding the bus, the girl showed her counselor her wrist, and she was better now. There was no scab there. And she looked at her counselor and she said, time doesn't heal, but love does. Love does. So that was such a beautiful testament to the work.
13 years old, I know. Yeah. Wonderful. You are speaking about what is after community?
Choice.
Choice, you're right. Oh, you said some beautiful things. I just wrote a few things. Like, sometimes silence is like you can't say things because it's so strong that you lose your way of communicating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I picked up my book and I was reading it, and all of a sudden I saw the word resilient, and I thought it said re-silent. I thought it was like a typo. And then I realized it's like resilience, it comes from this place of silence where you're just, there are no words because language can't contain your experience anymore. And also, like, ordinary language is almost, you don't relate to it. Mm-hmm. So there is an important place of silence.
Which is very interesting, because when people speak about, when people go very close to death, they say, like, well, I mean, it's like more soul to soul, that something is happening. And the language is just not big enough, how we say, to be able to carry what's happening.
Right. That's why a lot of people, they turn to song, to singing when somebody is dying, because, yeah, the words almost just, they don't have the same value in that sometimes. Although it is good for people to, make apologies or talk about what they want to give over to the grandchildren. So there is a place for words.
Mm-hmm. But sometimes you need another vehicle. You do a lot of art and a lot of things like that in your camp, isn't it, too? So
yeah, also with the bereaved mothers, we use a lot of psychodrama and art therapy, drumming, all kinds of creative therapies, nature therapy.
Mm-hmm. Walking, you mean? What is nature therapy?
It's hard to explain.
Oh, is it?
It's very creative. Okay. It's sometimes with storytelling or looking at a pond and seeing the animals. We also do animal therapy. So we do everything. Every kid will attach to some other avenue of expression.
Very interesting. creativity. Oh, yeah, so we just spoke about that. What is after creativity?
Oh, commemoration.
Yes.
That's the role of memory. And in the Torah, it's the verb to remember is mentioned 169 times.
Is that cool?
The Jews are really a people of memory, of remembering. And the idea about memory is that we have choices about how we remember because we can create protective memories. Like at camp, one of the things the kids do as an activity is they take eggs and they throw them off like the second floor of a building. But the idea, they have a contest, how can you protect the egg so it doesn't break? And they put it in pillowcases and cotton and boxes. It's really fun to watch. It's high school kids doing this, and they have a wonderful time. And some of the eggs don't break. So the idea is that you can take almost like an activity like that, and it becomes something where the kids, first of all, learn that they don't have to be broken by their experience, and that they have a wonderful time, and they share their personal history. You know, they share their stories, but the story changes because if you tell the story to somebody who really gets it and is a good listener, almost the way somebody listens can affect how the story is told. It affects your ability to tell the story and what you tell. Yeah, it's very interesting because people think it's that you have to be a good listener in order to understand, but it's also because you affect the story.
Very interesting.
So our goal is to turn the stories not just from trauma, but also into bigger stories of how the kids were healed by being with their friends and their counselors and other campers.
Sherri, thank you again for speaking about your personal life. And his time is flying, is already gone, but we want to remind you again the book, The Road to Resilience, From Chaos to Celebration. Wonderful book. You can find it on Amazon UK, and it's just been released, so it's very new. It will become a bestseller because we need this book to push us. It's the story of Sherri with her husband Seth, and it's really giving us some key in the Word of God, and it's just wonderful. So from Sherri and from me, from Israel, we send you plenty of blessing, and we say bye and see you later.
You've been watching In the Last Days, a TV program with Martin and Natalie Blackham, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. If you would like to financially support the program or find out about conferences, meetings, or ministry products, then please contact us with the details on your screen. Visit our easy-to-use website at www.inthelastdays.com and register for our free e-newsletter. Get the latest news from Israel, product information, online video teaching, or watch today's TV program at a time that's convenient to you. Thank you again, friends and partners, for making this program possible.
See you same time, same station for the next program from In the Last Days.